Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kentuckiana Travel Ball Podcast. My name is Tighe. I'm your host. As always, I'm here with Rick Hines. What's up, Rick?
What's up? What's up, everybody?
Today's podcast is brought to you by GuardianBaseball.com. Shop for top baseball and softball gear, locally owned, free shipping, free returns. Use the code Kentuckiana Travel Ball for additional 15% off. Now, listen, I don't know that I've gotten this across enough. You really need to go use this code. If you use the code Kentuckiana Travel Ball, you get an additional 15% off. So if there's other codes, other promos going on, whatever it may be, this gets you an additional 15% off. Kentuckiana Travel Ball. Please make sure you use that. And so Guardian's going to do something really cool next week, Rick. So we're going to have on Keith Madison. Did you know Keith, Ty? I bet you know Keith. Do. So anyways, I'm going to get to our special guest here in a minute. But Keith Madison will be on next week, and we're going to give away some catcher's equipment from All-Star Catcher's Gear. So we're extremely excited about that. But I'm also excited today because we have a special guest. Mr. Tighe Brown is in the studio.
How are you?
What's up, Tighe?
Doing well.
So, all right. So here's a little backstory. In when was it? 1994. I'm a freshman.
Don't give away too much of our age.
That sounds long ago.
So I'm a freshman at St. X, right? And, out on the ball field, basketball, whatever it may be. So one of the studs at St. X, who I feel like played everything, was Tighe. So I really looked up to his game, not only in baseball. What a lot of people don't know, you were all-state football. Yes. You were the starting forward on the basketball team.
Correct.
So you were a three-sport athlete, and I always envied your game and all of it, man. So it's really special to have you here. Now, Tighe, out of high school, did you have offers in other sports, or was it just baseball?
I did have other offers, more in football and baseball, but not basketball.
Okay.
Which I think it was just because I guess I was pigeonholed
for
football, baseball.
Yep. Gotcha.
And then yes.
And you went pro straight out of, you got drafted in the 5th round by the White Sox, right?
Correct.
And you went pro straight out of high school.
Correct. Without playing my senior year of baseball.
Wow.
I broke my navicular bone in basketball right before we went to Sweet 16. I actually played on the last Sweet 16 team for St. X to go.
That team was awesome, man. I remember we got to go get out of school to go to those games. I remember it vividly. It was so awesome. That team was so good. You guys had a ton of talent. That was a fun thing to do.
It was fun. And I tell people all the time, one of the best things I ever played in, out of everything I ever played, was that Sweet 16.
The Sweet 16 at Rupp.
And I don't know, because we weren't supposed to be there.
Right.
Or
right.
Like it hadn't been since, 62? I think the last time they played in state.
Wow. Haven't been since either, have they?
No.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No.
That's crazy. Klein's got to get it together. Now, Klein was on that team.
He was.
He was the starting point guard for that team. So, and the talent on that team was just ridiculous. Now, Scott Padgett was on that team?
No,
he was the year before, right?
He was 94.
Okay, that's right.
And Scott we always let Scott know.
Get rid of Padgett.
We went to Sweet 16.
Yeah,
Did you go in?
Yeah.
Which, that's a double-edged sword that he goes to UK and has that awesome career.
He played in the league for 12 years, 13 years? A ton.
A long time.
I know he's in there a long, long time.
Yeah. He'd probably make that trade.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, Tighe, we had on Dalen Lyle last week. Obviously, unbelievable player. Going straight to the pros out of high school. What are the challenges he's going to face, being that you've done it? Now, obviously, things have changed a little bit from now and then, but what are the challenges he's going to face trying to go straight to the pros from high school?
He's going to find out everyone's on the same playing field. Yeah, everyone's fast. Everyone has an arm. A lot of 5-tool guys. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be able to dominate like he has before. And
in high school and in the showcase series, I guess, is what you're referring to. Sure.
I mean, it's just literally when the speed factor.
Yep.
Just from throwing, hitting, running is he's going to find out like, wow, like this is what I do to other people.
Right. Right.
It's the kind of the way.
Yeah.
It is. And it's just but with that being said, though, the longer he stays with it or the higher he goes, the easier the
When you say
baseball
higher
gets.
he goes, you mean like as far as the level?
The levels.
So he's going to start in rookie ball, right? I would assume.
Most likely, yes. Coming out of high school, he'll start in rookie, advanced rookie, maybe,
Yep.
if he's lucky.
Right.
Depending on what kind of numbers he puts up pretty quickly. He could maybe go to low A.
Okay.
Depends on who's in front of him, too.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff. I'll tell you that the biggest adjustment that he's going to have to make, the fun of the game will go away.
It's business.
It is. It's truly a business
job.
Hey,
from
I've been
now
there,
on.
man. I did that on the golf side. I mean,
yes.
it doesn't become fun when you're playing for a paycheck.
Right.
Well, and it's everybody's job, so everybody's fighting. Everybody's
Right.
fighting for
Yep.
it. It's no longer just a game. It's
Well,
your job.
and Tighe, I don't know about you, but I don't know, like for me, when I was doing it, so I'm out trying to, you're playing in a tournament, and if you don't have another mean of income, that is your income. And if you've
Right.
got a sponsor or like a power builder, so whatever, they're expecting you to do so much and then you have these guys that buy shares into you. This is a little bit more of a golf thing, but then they own these pieces of you, so they own parts of your winnings. It's crazy, man. It's tough. It's a lot of pressure. A lot of guys, including myself, just don't have what it takes. To me, I had some music interests and some other things I wanted to go out and do, where these other guys, man, after a round, they're going out and they're grinding on the range, and that's all they're doing. And then they're getting up early, grinding on the range. I just wasn't ever in my DNA. But so from the baseball side, I mean, obviously you played, 8 years?
9 years.
9 years.
Yep.
Talk to me about your professional career a little bit.
Well, it was up and down. Had arm trouble and saw Dr. Andrews several times, and they couldn't really diagnose me with kind of a torn ulnar collateral, which is Tommy John. Then I would do rehab assignments and rehab throwing, and eventually get back up on the mound, then kind of have the same thing come back, and was plagued with injuries for several years. Then
Sure.
I think I got better to a point where I had a couple of years put together. Then the White Sox released me for really, I still today, I don't know why they did not give me a reason.
Okay.
Which still
You just get
irks me a
pulled.
little
So
bit.
I'm imagining you getting pulled into the manager's office, kind of like MLB. What's the show? The funny show. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of this? The movie.
Oh,
Bull Durham?
Well, Bull Durham's one of them, but
Major League.
Major League.
Yeah.
So I'm envisioning you getting pulled into the manager's office, and then
Well, it was a little worse than that because we went up to Medicine Hat, Canada to play Toronto, which I was in Billings, or not Billings, I was in Burlington, Iowa.
okay,
And actually we were coming, I'm sorry, it wasn't Medicine Hat, it was the Whitecaps.
Okay.
So we're coming home from Grand Rapids, and I think it was like a 12-hour bus trip or a 10-hour bus trip. And we
brutal.
got back at I think 2:30 in the morning.
yeah,
you mean you're not
And,
flying first class?
No. And I think it was 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and manager says, "Hey, I need to see you second up in my office." And I thought, "Oh, this is kind of interesting," because
Right.
the previous or the series with the White Sox, I think I threw 2 or 3 times and did very well.
okay,
And Nick Capra was my manager, and he says, "Tighe," he said, I got to let you go." And I said, "What?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then I was like, after the series that I just had, and he goes, "But," he said, "Buddy, I fought for you." And I said, "Well, what'd they tell you?"
right.
And he said, "Tighe, they didn't give me a reason."
Oh
And I
wow,
said, "What do you mean they didn't give you a reason?" He said, "Look, as a manager," he said, "I have to fulfill my part of this."
sure,
He said, "It came down the wire. This is what I have to do." And he said, "I have to fulfill my."
Oh, yeah, I mean,
and I,
business.
Yeah. And I said, "Cabby," I said, "But give me a reason." He said, "Tighe, I can't." He said, I can make one up for you."
right.
Make you feel better.
He
Yeah.
said, "I can't." And
Golly.
Leslie was actually living, we were married, and I went back, and she says, "Man, you all got in late," whatever. And I said, "Well, pack your stuff." And she goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Pack your stuff. We're going home." And she goes, "I don't understand." I said, "Me neither, but I've been released."
Okay,
And she goes, "Well, let's at least wait till tomorrow morning."
okay,
And I was like, "Well, okay." Because I'm like, at that point,
You were just ready
Yeah,
to
you're
get
ready.
out right there.
yeah, you're ready.
I was like, "There's no reason to be here."
Right.
I mean, Burlington's a small place to
Sure,
begin with, and
sure.
I thought, you know what, if we're going, and
okay.
I'll tell you how bad it was. My pitching coach had no clue I was getting released.
Wow.
I had J.R. Purdue as a pitching coach, and I literally went down, throwing my stuff in a bag, and J.R. goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And he goes, why are you leaving? I said, J.R., I've been released. He goes, you haven't been released. And he went up and shut the door, and you could hear Nick and
he's
him
fucking
going
pissed,
at
yeah.
it. And he came down and he apologized. He goes, I'm so sorry. He goes, I had no clue. He said, I would have, because he was a fair guy.
Right.
I mean, he was, if you were struggling, he'd tell you.
Sure.
Hey, you're struggling, like, hey, we need to do this, or, because if not.
Well, yeah, this is pro ball, man. This isn't, you're not patty caking here.
Right. And he had no clue. Our hitting coach had no clue. Like, it was just, it was a bad deal. It's still a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, from playing in the White Sox organization to playing in Cincinnati's organization.
Okay.
Night and day.
All right, well, so you get let go from the White Sox, and then does Cincinnati soon pick you up?
My agent, which represented Ken Griffey Jr., they had Riverfront Sports Management.
Yep.
He had some ties that they're based out of Cincinnati, and he scrambled and this and that and pulled some string, and all we wanted was an invite.
Okay.
If I could get an invite to spring training,
Just get me on.
I
Just
was
get me on.
confident
Yeah.
that I could make a team.
Okay.
So he had some connections, and he got me an invite. Then, long story short, I won a spot with the Dayton Dragons. They brand new season. And how this comes off, Jay Sorg, which played at Trinity, played at Moorhead, played in the Reds organization. He was actually running spring training for the Reds.
Okay.
He was at the time he was the youngest manager ever in professional sports.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Jay and I had played together.
Okay.
So, talking to Jay, and he literally ran the whole spring training from rookie ball all the way up, the transactions. A lot of people don't know it's a lot of paperwork.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of long days.
Sure, a lot of admin.
But, Jay did a great job and did it for several years. And who knows if Jay helped me out.
Gotcha.
Maybe.
Sure.
I don't know. Like, I threw well,
Right.
and I won a spot, and
What'd you do well pitching wise?
well, the White Sox kind of, with their personnel, when I was drafted, they had a pretty good 5-man rotation. They told me if I was going to be in anywhere close to it, I had to be a middle relief guy.
Okay.
So they took my windup away from me, made me only go into the stretch, and I threw only out of the stretch, middle relief guy, maybe 2, maybe 3 innings at the most.
Okay.
And that was my role with the White Sox.
All right.
They said, if you're going to do that, then this is where you're going to get to the big league the fastest, and it's going to be out of the bullpen.
What were you throwing? Fastball, breaking ball? What was your pitches?
Well, you had your 4-seam. I had two different 2-seams.
Okay.
Then I had a slider and a circle change.
Okay.
Then when I got with the Reds and I was in Dayton, they approached me and said, hey, would you ever consider going back out of the windup? And I was like, well, at this point in my career, I'll do anything.
Right.
And they said, well, why don't we do – and they had some big guys come in down, because that was the one thing that was a blessing and a curse being in Dayton. Because you were so close to Cincinnati.
Yeah, you're right.
And we had so many prospects that our GM would show up out of the blue.
Yeah.
And a lot of the front office guys would come.
Sure.
So they said, hey, we got some directors that are coming, this and that. We just want to see how you do out of your windup. We're not going to tell you yes, no. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So they had me throw BP out of the windup. And now keep in mind, it wasn't just BP. Like, I was trying to prove myself.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have Adam Dunn that's hitting you.
Trying to hit
you.
bombs.
Okay.
You have Austin Kearns that are coming in. Like they didn't take it easy on
No,
me.
man.
They're
trying to do their thing too.
And I held my own.
Okay.
And you could see the chatter go on.
Yep.
Behind the
Sure.
the
You
dome.
see them talking.
Yeah, and I'm thinking either this is going one way or the other.
Right.
Either they're going to say, "Hey, we like this," or I'm
No
going to be
way.
called in the office again. You know, kind of.
What kind of velocity are you throwing at this point?
I was probably about 88 to about 92,
Okay.
depending on if it's 4-seam, 2-seam.
Got it.
And my ball, the one thing that I could do with the 2-seam and 4-seam, I could get it to run or cut.
Right.
Just, almost like I knew what, if you were a spin hitter, if you were a balance hitter, if you were a dive hitter, of what kind of fastball I was going to throw you.
Okay.
And for the most part, it would move all the time.
Gotcha.
And we would sit down late at nights with roommates that were hitters and say, "Hey, would you rather face a guy throwing 98 to 100, or would you rather?" And almost every one of them said, "Eventually, someone throwing that hard, eventually you'll get their timing."
Yeah.
Like at some point, they said it's not easy.
Right.
Like it's not easy, but and it's hard. But eventually, the more they always said, and you know, little egos, you know,
Sure.
going, eventually, if I see him enough, I'll get him.
Right.
But they said we can't stand the guy that throws 88, 86 to 90 to 92, like low 90, and their ball moves all over the place
Right.
because you can't predict that movement.
Gotcha.
But they always said if you got someone throwing hard and it's straight as an arrow, eventually I'll
You can get the timing.
Yeah.
I mean,
The ball's going to be there.
Yeah.
You just got to.
makes sense.
Yeah.
like if you can time it up, you can get it. But if you're throwing 89, 90 and your ball's moving and darting up and
Oh,
down
yeah,
and
man.
rising,
Yeah.
they
You're
said
constantly chasing it. Yeah.
It's harder.
All right. So you're in Cincinnati. You obviously make the team. What happens career-wise there?
I was cut a long story short, they liked what they saw out of
Okay.
the windup.
Yep.
So they made me go down to Billings, Montana for a 22-day rehab assignment.
Okay.
So I went from high A to advanced rookie. And I almost threw a perfect game one day. I had Teddy Powers as a pitching coach,
Okay.
which he was the bats coach for years. And he's
Yep.
actually the Reds bullpen coach
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I wind up going back to Dayton after my 22
Right.
day rehab assignment. I was there maybe a week, and they threw me into Chattanooga.
Okay.
So I was in Double A within like a month,
Okay.
and I thought, oh man, this is great.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm moving.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I'm one step from coming home.
Yep.
And I'm 2 from the big leagues.
Yep.
Like I'm a bus ticket from big leagues, and
Sure.
and I'm literally a car ride to go home.
Right.
And finished my Double A in Chattanooga. Then all the wheels fell off in Cincinnati's organization. Like all the personnel, like our GM left, our directors left, the coaches left, like everyone. Like Billy Dorn was our player developed guy, and he wound up leaving and taking another job. And I loved Billy, and I thought Billy liked me. Well, they had from September 5th to October something to re-sign me,
Yep.
and never heard anything. I called my agent and say, "Hey, if we haven't heard anything, it's good. They're considering."
Okay.
Well, they waited till the last day to tell me they're going to a different direction,
Gotcha.
and at that point, everything's pretty much full.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
one
It's
of
the
those-
last second. Right.
right. You know, you're scrambling, you're calling for favors, you know, this and that.
Everybody else is full too.
Yeah,
You know, so-
like it's one of those things. Then agent once again got on the phone and he called Teddy Powers and said, "Hey, Tighe doesn't have a place to play. Like, can you do anything? You know, blah blah blah. You know, kind of." So Teddy played for Tommy Helms, which Tommy Helms used to be the manager of the Reds, and he was up there when all the Pete Rose stuff was going on
Okay.
and stuff. And I actually played with Ryan Helms, his son, in the
Okay.
White Sox organization. So Teddy spoke up and said, "Hey, just give the kid a shot."
Right.
So that was the Atlantic League Independent,
Gotcha.
and we all went to Kansas City Royals spring training site. Everyone was on site. There was, I think, 8 teams that were there, and they chose their teams. And I'll tell you, out of all the leagues that I ever played in, now don't get me wrong, you want to be in an organization. You want to be
Of course. Right.
Right.
But the talent because it's like playing a AAA league. And Jose Canseco was there. Ozzie Canseco was there. Jim Laris, Lance Johnson. My pitching coach was Mitch Williams. Tommy Helms was our manager. Like it was ex big leaguers The reason you're there is you're an ex-big leaguer at the end of your career trying to say, hey, I can still do this.
I can still do it.
I don't want to leave the game yet. Yeah.
Exactly. Or you're hurt.
Okay.
And instead of someone taking that shot at you saying, oh, yeah, we'll sign him and save the money.
Sure.
That, oh, well, this kid in the Atlantic League, he hit 450, whatever. Blah,
Okay.
blah. And I'll give you a prime example. My second year, I won a spot on that rotation.
All right.
Then I wound up blowing my arm out. I did have Tommy John in Atlantic, so I rehabbed and I went back. Prime example of this is I didn't get to pitch against him, but I did get to play. Was Ricky Henderson.
Okay.
Ricky Henderson was at the end of his career.
Mm-hmm.
He signed with the New York Bears.
Okay.
Awesome guy. He came, I think he played 3 or 4 weeks with them. We were, I think, in Bridgeport somewhere. We turned on the TV. There's Ricky Henderson playing left field for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
that's what kind of like, it's that step.
Gotcha.
Like, this is what the Atlantic League
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Like it's kind of, and I tell you, for talent wise, and it's go about your business. You know,
Yep.
everyone's there. Like you're there for a reason. Like we don't have to get after you. You know, you're going to work out. You're going to do this. You're going to take your BP. You're going to, you know, it's
kind of like you're on your own.
you are,
like,
and you show up.
You got to get there. You got to show up.
Yep.
And
You
it's
do
all
your
on
work.
Yeah.
And you go and you go on. But like we had all kinds. Like Brian Hunter played for us, the Braves old first
Yep.
base, and they're there just saying, hey, I can still play.
Sure.
And they signed contracts out of it.
Okay. So when did you hang it up?
I think in 2003.
Okay. Was that a tough decision?
Well, after the Tommy John surgery, they had bought my contract out to another independent league, and I went, and it just wasn't a fit.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't. I thought, you know, I could get on and wait for next spring training. And they even told me when I left Atlantic City, hey, if this doesn't work out, we'll give you an invite to spring training again.
Mm-hmm.
Then came home, wasn't a fit, was married, started a family.
Yeah, sure.
You know, one of those things.
Yeah.
And had a special needs child.
Yep.
Then
Yep.
never went back.
Yeah, understood. I get it, man. So, all right. Tighe is the coach of the 11U strike team, which
Soon to be 12U.
soon to,
Yeah.
rising 12U. So, you know, in our opinion, and obviously Rick and I have been around doing this for a while too at this particular age level, you guys had always had the best group of kids, one of the better teams. I know that you guys probably lost a couple battles to that Vipers Floyd team again this year, but you know, you guys are routinely one of the better teams here in this area. We've always had a lot of respect for what you guys do and how you've done it from a coaching staff, and I've always preached it's about the coach. It's about what the coach knows. It's all about, now look, you can have a great organization, you know, you could be playing for a Vipers or a Sting or whatever, but if you don't have the right coach, you're going to have a hard time getting those group of kids to be successful.
To some degree, yes. I mean, it's you know, the one thing that's unique about us though is we truly tried to, and we started out being, and technically we still are, but we're really a rec team. And
well, because a lot of those kids came from that J-Town rec, right?
that's right,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still part of J-Town Rec. I mean, that's still it. But we pull all our guys literally from maybe a 5-mile radius.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's one of those things like to keep, and I say this all the time, and I say this, if you can keep a team
Yep.
together
Right.
for more than 2 years,
Right.
you're doing something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're always going to lose 1 or 2,
Yep.
or you might lose 3, or everyone thinks the grass is greener on the other side.
Sure.
You know, it's one of those things.
And there's coaches constantly trying to poach other kids. And
all that we get poached all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the time. Which and sometimes, you know, like you want to drink the Kool-Aid, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But keep this in mind: if you leave, your spot might not be back.
Right.
Because I and even my coaching staff, like I have a great coaching staff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we've
well,
been-
and
we've
you've got
been-
guys that have played at a high level and everything else too. Sure.
and you know, I credit them. Okay, and we bounce stuff off each other all the time, even during the game. Like Toodles to Sean, Toodles to Daniel.
Yep.
It's a good mix.
Sure.
But with that, also, you got to have a good mix of parents.
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, it's one of those
Parents
things
can beat
too.
cancer.
Yeah, I mean, it's when
That's the part people don't realize.
Oh, yeah.
The parents have a lot to play in.
Oh, they really do.
I mean, a ton.
Yeah.
And you know, the biggest thing, and I always tell them, you can ask me anything you want, but be prepared for what I'm going to tell you, because I don't sugarcoat a lot of things. I truly don't. Like if they come up and say, "Hey, why my kid this?" and well, your kid can't hit and your kid can't field and this, it's not that brutal.
Right.
But you know what I'm
But
saying.
you're going to tell them, sure.
Right.
And I think you should. And to me, communication's the key
Right.
for this whole thing. As long as you're communicating with a parent, then you should be able to work whatever things are out. It's when the communication stops.
Exactly. And you know, and I try to be upfront and I mean, I'm not that brutal, but you know what?
Oh, yeah.
You know, if
Sure.
if the kid has 6 errors,
Yep.
you know, we got to make a change.
Yeah.
You know, if the kid is
That's interesting. He says 6. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
6 is the number. Okay.
All right.
But you know, and we're good enough that we can move some kids around that, hey, think about this. You know, this is what you got to work on.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if you struggle at this phase of your game, you got to get it fixed before you can go on.
Yeah.
Because I played, even when we were in I was in the White Sox, we had Jerry Manuel for a manager, and he said, you have to be on the field somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's your position or not. If you're not on the field, you can't be seen.
Right.
So if you're on the bench or whatever, and they're making out a roster, they're not looking on the bench.
Right.
Like you might not play right field,
Right.
but that day they put you at third base. If you're on the field, someone's seeing you.
It's a good thing.
And we tell the kids all the time, you got to be one of the 9
Sure.
or one of the 10 if you're doing an extra hitter. You know, and if you're not, you got to work that much harder to get there.
Yep.
It's one of those things. But open honesty. It's
Oh, yeah.
that you know if they can, and I tell them all the time, just be prepared because we're going to lay it out, and you have to do it that way. If not, because you don't want to mislead anyone either.
Well, what I thought was interesting with your team is, you know, your son, who's a fantastic player, when we had played him, played a lot of shortstop. And then you brought in a kid that kind of took that spot. And then your son didn't really have that shortstop spot anymore. Now, I don't know that, you know, obviously from a coaching standpoint, you probably could have paid your kid there, but to us, it looked like you were playing who the better player was in that spot, whether it was your kid or not.
Well, we try.
And, you know, and I've always kind of respected that side of it too. We always try to make sure we don't play the daddy ball thing. And you guys certainly haven't, because, you know, you can look and see what you've done with the coaches' kids, with other kids you brought in. So it's certainly what you guys have done have been really good. Now, you mentioned the rec thing, which is interesting to me. So our kids have kind of gotten out. Now, we still have a small affiliation with Hikes Point. So we could have done some rec stuff through there if we wanted to, but you guys have. You're continuing to play. A lot of people have hung it up. You guys are still playing and still have a lot of ball left. Tell me about that. Why are you guys doing the All-Star thing?
Well, to me, it's dying. Rec ball is dying.
It's dying, right?
It is. I mean, it's kind of it's one way to hold on.
Yeah.
You know, to that.
Now, are you seeing this as you guys are playing in these All-Star things? Is the competition pretty weak? Is it?
It's down.
Yeah.
It is down. But with that said, too, travel ball waters is down too. And when I say that, also, if you don't have good coaches, if you don't have good kids, and you go and the one parent that says, "Well, my kid didn't get to play, so I'm going to go pay the $50 to USSSA or AAU, and I'm going to go get 9 other kids," and they don't practice.
Right.
They don't do anything. They don't know any phases of the game.
Right.
And they go out there and they just pay their money. To me, that's a waste also.
I agree. I see what you're saying, and there's a ton of that right now.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And, you know, I think they're trying to, over the years, at least as long as I've been in it, at least they're starting to try to class people, which is good too.
Right.
Like, you know, and there should be a phase if this is the way it's going that, okay, you're all R in A, or you are in AA, or
triple
you're
A,
triple
major,
A,
sure.
Yeah. Like so when you get in and you're spending, it's about money.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
It's all about the money. And I never want to pay for a tournament to go in and just run it.
Yep.
Like I want our
that
kids.
doesn't do you any good.
It doesn't
Get nothing out of it.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
And
except the $10 plastic ring that the kids love,
at the
by the
end.
way. But
Right. Yeah, that's
still,
right.
yeah, you get nothing out
It's
of it.
amazing what that ring will do, though, right?
It is amazing what that ring will do.
Yeah.
You know, and I've heard Dan McDonald say exactly what you're talking about. He's made the comment, look, when I get these kids, they haven't competed. Because dad just goes and creates a new team. If he's not playing shortstop,
Yeah.
well, dad goes and creates his own team, gets 9 kids going, and then there's another new team. These kids aren't competing by the time they get to college, which is kind of interesting.
Not only that is, but it also is, talk about competing, right? You get some teams, and it drives me nuts. They'll lose, and it's like, oh, don't worry, we'll play another tournament next weekend. And I'm like, that's not the way it works, guys. Like, it's like, I want you to be upset and to think about what the good and the bad came out of this and grow from it.
Right.
Like, it's so, you know, because eventually there won't be a tournament next weekend.
Yeah.
Like, then eventually you won't play for us either. Like, you're getting to, I mean, in 2 more years, most of them are all going to be in high school.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Then once you go to high school,
Yeah.
you get your high school coach and say, hey,
Yep.
you know, I really want you to play for this guy because I communicate with this
Yeah.
guy. Or, hey, I want you
Sure.
to play over here. Or I want you 4 to go here.
Yeah, and your kids will split up a little bit, it seems like, when they get to high school, too.
Well, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
It's kind
Happens to
of,
everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to.
Man, that's interesting hearing you say that because, you know, look, you guys have a championship winning culture. And here you say, hey, no, it's not okay to be okay with that. I love that. That's my mentality. That's how we've coached. But we've had some parents in the past get pissed at us. Yeah. Honestly, we lost a big group of kids because of that mentality.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't okay for us to lose, and they're like, "Yes, it is. We can. What was the comment? We need to learn how to lose graciously. That's not in my DNA. You know, you want to lose graciously, you need to go start a new team like you did. So good luck."
Well,
but
we had this thing at St. X that, if I remember right, I think Nelson Mandela said it, and it says you never lose, you always learn.
Yep.
And to some degree, it's true.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like if you lose, well, why'd you lose? Well, we learned these set of kids, you know, struggle here, or we didn't cover this,
Sure.
or we got outplayed,
Right.
or got outcoached,
Right.
or something like. It's always one of those things, but you have to learn to lose. Also, you know, it's kind of, but you don't have to like it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
And you need to make sure how you find a way to make yourself better from losing.
Right. You know, and this is going to sound a little weird, but a loss isn't always that bad either, especially when you're going into either a big tournament or a series.
Oh yeah.
Or something that
Amen.
says, hey, we can lose.
Yeah. Well, so Rick Arnold, who obviously coaches Trinity High School, won the state tournament this year, he was telling us the best thing that ever happened to them. They lost to DeSales, which in his opinion, you know, it was kind of a bad loss. They shouldn't have lost. A kid got up there and had a great Noah Bright had a great outing on the mound, and they lose. He goes, it was the best thing that ever happened to him. They did a players-only meeting. They got pissed. They yelled at each other. They came out and started just crushing people after that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens.
You know, and they went and they didn't lose again. They went on a run where they didn't lose again.
Yeah, keeps you hungry. The losses keep you hungry.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's a big deal. So, you played 3 sports in high school. We're really good at all 3 of them. Talk to me about multi-sport athletes. You and I've actually had some advice from you in the past on this. We've had this conversation because I've tried to figure out how to navigate that road because we've got a couple kids that are really good at a couple different sports, and it crosses over some.
Yeah.
How do you deal, because obviously I know your son plays several sports, how do you deal with multiple sport athletes?
Well, every case is a little different.
Yep.
All right. But usually I am very good to, let's get through basketball. Basketball is done, it's all baseball.
Okay.
When baseball is done, it's all football. Leslie and I have this, Leslie, my wife.
Yep.
We have this kind of rule, which it kind of gets bent every now and then, but we tell our kids can play anything.
Okay.
Like if they want to get into something, but it's one at a time.
Right.
Because I'm not, I don't want to get in and say, hey, we're going to do baseball or softball here. Well, this weekend they're going to go travel for basketball.
Gotcha.
No. when it's baseball season, it's baseball season. When it's football season, it's football season.
And basketball and so forth. That's kind of how we are too. I just, in my mind, I just can't. Now, we've got kids that do both and we've got a kid that does basketball and baseball at the same time, and they seem to make it work.
Soccer.
But it's tough. So how do you deal with it from a coaching? So this is obviously a travel ball baseball podcast. So what these coaches are listening to is how should I best go approach that situation when it comes across my plate?
Because all these sports are they're all year.
Well,
now.
everything's
like
going
every
all year.
sport is all year.
Right.
So how do you approach it on a really high end team?
I have a rule that if I'm going to donate my time, my coaches are going to donate our time, whatever we come first because it is baseball season.
Okay.
All right.
So baseball season, like March to.
Usually, what we try to do is we start usually our indoor usually around January 1st. Like the new year, but we put it out. We usually try to do like twice a week, and you at least have to show up to one.
Okay.
All right.
This is off season.
Because basketball's still going on.
Basketball's still going. And if you miss two, that's fine. Like if you're missing because you're playing basketball or something, at least you're doing something, right?
But if you're missing because you're playing Fortnite, that's a different story.
It's like, oh, I don't want to go,
Okay.
And it usually doesn't happen that way.
All right.
So at a certain point, we get, because most of all our kids usually only play on one or two teams.
Okay.
Like for, say, basketball.
Yep.
Maybe three at the most. Then, well, how many more games you got? Like, how many are you playing in this? The CSAA here, or if they're doing
some sort of travel league, Mid-America League, whatever.
Or the J-Town Bluebird
Gym
kind
gotcha.
of, or Midwest.
Sure.
When's your last game?
Okay.
Because when we get in, and it's usually around March, somewhere around there, that we say, all right, March 19th or March whatever, it's baseball from here on out.
When you say baseball from here on out, how do you police that?
Well, if they miss, usually they'll sit.
So if they miss a practice,
they'll
sit in a game.
Yeah,
one game, or so when you play a weekend tournament, is it just one game, or is it the whole weekend? How do you do that?
It all depends. Usually, like if they miss one practice, usually they'll sit a couple innings.
Okay.
All right. Then you get them to play in. Then let's say they miss two practice. You might not start for two games, but you'll play. I mean, you'll get in. It's not like we understand. It's life.
Yeah.
Right. Like it isn't all. You're going to have some things. You're going to have weddings. You're going to have funerals. You're going to have
sure.
And you're going to miss. A planned vacation, this and that. Hey, I've got money on this. I can't miss. Understand, but understand too. I got 11 or 12 other kids that are coming and they're getting instruction and
they're
committed. They're it's kind of that. It's fine.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen all too often. Also, if we schedule something, we try to get everything out like on a Monday or Tuesday that we know. And let's say we have a kid that plays soccer.
Okay.
All right. And let's say we practice on Tuesday, Thursday. Well, if they have practice or soccer practice on Wednesday and Thursday, I have no problem. Like you're not missing me. But if you want to go and practice, or do something with that soccer, no problem. Like if you have a tournament on a weekend and we don't have a tournament and we have nothing scheduled.
I get all that, but what about when it does conflict? Because that's where I was trying to get some. Because we've got a kid that's actually on the same soccer team as a kid you have, and so I was trying to figure out how you handled some of the situations that we were dealt with. Now, look, the kid that I have is a great player, awesome player. I need him on the field, quite honestly, but I want to be fair to the other kids too. So I'm just trying to figure out what the fair coach thing is.
The only thing if we only had one conflict, and I talked to his parents, and his parents said, this is why we have to do this.
Okay.
Which made sense, right? It didn't have any conflicts before. That had not been a problem. They to hold his spot for the fall, because this kid does not play football.
Okay.
He plays soccer in the fall.
Yep.
Basically, they had to come to an agreement that they were going to play two tournaments and this and that. And my understanding is they paid full price for the whole to keep his spot in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So fall, we do nothing, like fall for baseball wise.
Right.
So he said, I got a problem. So he literally, I think, only missed half of a game,
okay,
an inning, or even, and it just happened to work out. But that probably is the only time that has ever come up to be.
Because you said baseball's first.
Right. And my parents, for the most part, understand that. And it's always been my rule. Like, you could play whatever you want, but when it's baseball season, I can't be. I'm not juggling everyone's schedule.
Yeah, I understand that.
Like
I'm with you there.
I mean, you can't juggle 12 different other schedules with 14 other sports.
I get that.
Exactly. And, knock on wood, it's
worked out.
It has, but I was up front also.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you're going to do that, we might go another way.
Yeah.
Like, we might, what do you mean? Well, we might choose someone else. Like, if you want to do that, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine.
That's great. Yeah.
Just be up front with us.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I'm two-sport, this and that. Fine. But then we might have to go another way to get another kid.
You might need to find another team that is maybe
that's
more.
That's interesting.
Convenient.
Well, I tell you, I've had the luxury of talking to a lot of college coaches, and they love multi-sport athletes, man. They love it. They honestly get a little bit worried when baseball is the only thing a kid's done, because they love to see that kid that's played basketball. Look at the draft when they were talking this MLB draft.
They were all basketball players.
Bam, basketball player, bam, basketball player. Right. I mean, I tell you, man.
What was the most interesting thing out of the draft? The first round.
Well, for me, obviously that the St. X kid, the Sweeney kid going 20 was unbelievable. And the fact that he didn't even really have college offers, goes to a low mid-major
as a walk-on,
and turns himself into another 20th draft pick was incredible.
Yeah.
That was
by the
awesome.
New York Yankees.
The Yankees.
Yeah, right.
I thought that was awesome. But I'm not exactly the height. I don't know. What are you getting at there?
Out of this year was what, 30 picks or 31?
Yeah,
picks?
31 for the first round.
Out of 11 out of the 31 picks were shortstops.
Yeah. Oh, there's a ton of shortstops.
Out of the 11, only 2 college.
Oh, a ton of high school kids. I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of noticed that, but
yeah.
But even I think it was at 16, 15 or 17 of high school, college. But if you noticed, where were the left fielders? Where were the right fielders? Where were the first basemen? Where were the third basemen?
None of them.
None.
Shortstop, center field, and pitcher.
It's all up the middle.
I
tell my parents, and I tell everyone, you got to learn to play up the middle, because if you can play up the middle,
that's interesting.
You can play first.
It didn't hit me, but you're right.
But think about it.
Because if you can play shortstop, you can probably play first or left or right. Yeah, that's a good point.
What was the number 1 pick? It was a catcher.
It was a catcher, yeah, Henry Davis.
Then where was it? It was pitcher, shortstop, center field.
Center field, yeah.
It was all up the middle.
All up the middle.
That's a good point. Man, that's a great point. That didn't hit me, but you're right. Absolutely
you're right,
is.
But, I don't know if it's changed, but I remember the shortstops and the second basemen, predominantly, they make the least amount of money on an MLB team, right? Or has that changed? I mean,
it seems like the outfilders are getting it right now. But if you go back in history, I mean, look at A-Rod. I mean, look at Jeter.
Yeah,
that's
right.
I think Patisse.
Yeah, in your pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's certain exceptions, but it seems like your power hitters that are like the first basemen and the right field
home runs
and all that, they're making the big dollars.
I don't know.
And the pitchers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. But, I mean, prime example, look at Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah.
What he played most of his career.
Yeah.
He was shortstop.
A little bit third base.
Third,
But where did he end up? Third base.
Third base.
So, he played up the middle.
Yeah, well, then obviously he could go play third base.
Yeah.
Something interesting, too. So we ran into Lucas Dunn, who was the University of Louisville second baseman. We were playing in Panama. This dude, man, was a physical specimen. Like, he was a big, just dude, right?
Yeah, muscles everywhere.
And I think he went like 8th round. And you see these little scrawny dudes going in the first round, these high school kids. It's interesting how the scouts are valuing that. Well, I mean, it really is.
That's the greatest thing about baseball. It doesn't matter if you're tall, skinny.
Yeah, that's true.
Fat.
That's true.
I hate to say that, but it doesn't matter what color you are.
Right.
There is literally a spot for you on a field somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you could be fast, you can be slow. Now everyone wants the 5-tool cat. Like, you have to have something unique to bring to the game. But with that being said, there is a spot somewhere on that field to play.
Yeah.
You have a chance.
You got a chance. And so it's interesting, I'm going to go back to my son a little bit. I mean, his future, look, I'm a 4th-generation golfer. My dad wasn't a professional, but very well could have been. My 2 uncles are professionals. my son should be a golfer. He's a good golfer. But so a good friend of mine, Corey Kaufman, who runs the golf academy, he's always like, Tighe, make him an athlete first. Let him play everything else. Golf will be there. Let him make him play basketball. Make him play baseball. Make him play football. Make him an athlete, and then he's going to be a better golfer for it. So that's kind of the route I've taken. But the problem that I've gotten into is this travel ball thing has taken all of our time. We've done very little to no golf. So now he's kind of way behind. He's going to have to really catch up. But it's interesting, this whole multi-sport, this whole trying to do multiple things seems like you're better off in the long run. Obviously, that was your makeup. So
well, and I try to stick to it.
Yeah.
Like people always say, "What are we going to do this winter?" When I don't care, do whatever you want.
Yeah,
I'm playing
and they're
basketball.
like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Get away from the game."
right.
Like you can't play one sport year round.
Being an ex-pitcher from an arm care, do you think it's good to take some time off pitching?
Oh, heck yeah. And if you look at the big leaguers, once that season's done, they don't pick up a ball or do anything until
Spring training?
no, a little bit before.
Okay.
But if you're in the big leagues, you're January, for the spring training. But
Right.
they're late December.
Yeah.
They're early January. They're usually at spring training camp the second week in January.
Gotcha.
Or February, usually in February.
Sure.
But they don't start until January. Then they use that time to get ready.
Yeah.
Even like it now, hitters wise, they'll take it. They won't do it as what I've gathered from roommates and other. They'll take a little bit of time off, but they'll hit once.
You're
a
still
week
hitting.
or,
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
hit. Because it's easy to set up a tee or
Sure.
into a net or
Sure.
something
Go to a
like that, or
cage,
just
right.
just go to the.
But arm
cage.
care is a little different.
Very much so. You only have so many bullets in your arm.
Yeah.
I mean that's.
So, Rick, I want to go back to the All-Star stuff. Let's pick his brain a little bit about, Tighe's a why. So that's the other thing. Like, to me, now, a bit of it is we probably would have had, if we didn't have to run through you guys on the strike, maybe we would have thought about keep doing it. But, and I know, so you don't get to go play for the Little League World Series, which is on TV, because that's part of it.
Yeah.
You're in the Babe Ruth thing. I'm still kind of curious why
what's
you guys.
the draw to
Yeah.
play in the Babe Ruth World Series? Playing against rec teams where you've outscored opponents 114-4.
Yeah,
so far
those games
this
can't be
summer.
fun. Beating somebody 30-1.
Well, and let me tell you, and we pulled the dogs off. I mean, like we don't want to embarrass anyone.
Right.
Right.
It's not, but it's the process. If you really think about it, like think about your kids, right? Like, what do you have or what do you play in that? Let's project them in high school, even farther, college.
Okay.
All right. It's one things that probably truly is a set route, right? Like you got to win districts. Or well, it's changed a little bit because it's about money, but districts will give you district and state.
Right.
But you got to win districts. You got to win state. You have to win state to go to region.
to keep advancing.
Exactly. And that's the problem with a lot of youth sports to begin. You just pay something, you play a tournament, and it's over, right?
Like you
It's
said,
kinda
there's
like-
a tournament next weekend.
Yeah, it's a
no
tournament
big
next
deal.
year.
Yeah.
Well, if we lose,
So
it's done.
You're done.
Like it's kind of one of those things. And think about it. What about districts in high school? What about like how did it work in golf?
good point.
Like if you if you didn't win,
You didn't get through regions, you don't go to state.
right,
right.
right, and it's kind of and nowadays it's like, oh, it's all right.
Same with college. You don't win the conference. Like, so I went to a smaller college. If we could keep moving on, we had a great team. But if you didn't win, you don't move on.
Right, and all stars to me, it's a dying breed.
Yep.
But it is a true route, and it's one of those things. And we get those kids from a 5-mile radius.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of, and it's still somewhat regulated.
Now, are you playing rec ball to be able to do this?
Now we pay a fee to J-Town to be part of J-Town.
Okay.
But our sanction fee to whatever is how they worked it out this year is with Sean Johnson. Like that was our rec because they only had three or four teams.
You used that U-Trip league
Yes.
as your rec league,
Yes.
so you didn't necessarily.
So
have
Really?
Yeah. Like that was that's how we paid.
Okay.
We paid the sanction to J-Town for like, if you want to call it an opt-out fee,
Right.
kind of thing. But basically, we paid like we were going to play at J-Town. Like
Gotcha.
they got our money.
Okay.
Okay.
With that, and I think most all the strike teams kind of did that because there's just not enough kids to have.
But you used to have to play in that particular rec league to be able to go on and play Babe Ruth. So they've changed all those
picked as an
rules.
They've changed all the
all-star,
rules.
yeah, right.
They have changed all
Now,
the rules.
Did they change the rules like nationwide?
Yes.
So are you going to run into some travel ball teams that are
And
rec teams now?
as we get
As you get further down the road?
I'll tell you, and you know how we talked about AA. We ran into 2 travel balls and teams in state. Like Prairie Village was one, and the Reapers out of Spencer County, they were another one. Like they wore their Reaper uniforms.
They didn't wear, okay.
They didn't even wear Shelby County stuff. Or I'm sorry,
Spencer County. Yeah.
Which that's a travel ball team.
Right.
That was kind of, but they changed all the rules. And
Interesting.
It's one of those things too. It boils down to the money.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Right.
Of course.
We'll either take these teams or we won't have anything.
Right.
Well, in a little credit to Ripken and Babe Ruth.
For adapting a little bit.
Yeah, they see it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
And so that's why they allowed these rules changes to happen.
oh, I'm sure it is. I mean, but they see it. Like they probably sat back and their front office out at New Jersey and said, "Hey, why are we losing all these kids?" Or, "Hey, why are we?"
Right.
And you're going to have to adapt. Well, think about look at Little League.
Yeah.
I think there's only 2 little leagues here in the Louisville area. It's still Valley Sports
Yeah.
and
St.
it's Oldham
Matthews?
County.
Oh,
no,
Oldham.
Yeah, St. Matthews.
St.
Babe Ruth.
Matthews is Ripken. Yeah. So you think about it. Where I mean, when
That's a
we
good point.
played,
Oh, it was all of
St.
them.
Matthews, Fern Creek,
Oh, yeah.
Prairie Village, Oklahoma,
They're all over the place.
They're all over the place. Well, where are they?
Yeah.
And I think Ripken has stepped back and said, "Hey, look at our numbers. Like they're down. Like what are we going to do?" And
That's interesting.
this is, and they changed it last year.
Okay. So you don't. So your kids don't have to actually. You don't play in any rec games at all. So your whole rec league was actually the travel ball league where
Yes.
you're playing Vipers,
That's
Floyd,
what
and
we
all those other
use
guys.
as our rec ball.
Okay.
Got
All
it.
right.
That was
All right. So let's talk about the 11U landscape a little bit. Who are the better teams in the area in your opinion? Who have you run against that you're like, man, it's a formidable club?
well. Let me tell you, and I tell my kids this all the time. Anyone can beat anyone on any given day, and they look, and I tell them, one person can beat you now.
Yeah.
And they look at me like, all right. I said, that one person on the mound, he can shove it and perfect game, whatever, and beat you.
Yep.
You got one, it's a 1-1 ball game, and you got one kid in the box. He'll hit it out. He can beat you. Like it's one person now that they're developing, getting stronger.
Yep.
Everyone matures at a different time.
Sure.
But one person can beat you now.
Oh yeah.
No matter how good you are, because we always tell the kids, win the series. Like that's how baseball is played. If it's a series of 3, it's a series of 5, it's a series of 7.
Okay.
Win the series. Like it's, we said.
Well, how do you relate that to a tournament weekend?
Well, let's for
Like
the
pool play and
like
bracket
pool play, or how about we'll relay it to the Vipers. All
Okay.
right? Floyd, Chris,
Yep.
Cameron,
Yep.
we're pretty evenly matched.
Okay.
All right. We always tell the kids win the series. So our first one we won, beat them.
Okay.
4-3, something like that. They've gotten us the last 3 times. But
Since then.
Yeah, and it's always been by 1 run.
Wow.
Like they haven't blown us out. We haven't blown them out. We're pretty evenly at. I tell you, and I joke with Chris all the time. You're all the luckiest team ever. Like when we hit it right at you. But toodles to them. I mean, they got to play, right?
Sure.
Like Chris and I, we live right down the street from one another,
Gotcha.
and he'll stop, and I'll be outside and say, "Hey, who you got this weekend? Or
Right.
where are you playing? This
Sure.
and that."
And Chris is obviously, and we're talking about Chris Burke,
Yeah.
former Astros, former St. X star, who, a good friend of both of ours. But Chris obviously knows baseball, and Cameron Hahn's got a kid on that
Yeah.
team, and
That's
that
it.
kid's a stud. So, there's a lot of baseball people on that team as well.
Right. And it to the point though is they're winning the series right now.
Mm-hmm.
We tell the kids when we play them again, try to even the series up.
Right.
Like that's what I mean by win the series.
Okay.
I like that. That makes sense. So, as far as kind of the best, as far as landscape 11, do you think kind of they're on top than you guys, or how would you rank that? And who else is up there?
It's kind of hard to say. And when I say I'm not picking on anyone. Or it's really who's on the mound.
That's a great point.
I tell you,
and that's baseball, right?
It is.
That's a good point.
And if you look at different, like different teams that we play. Let's take the Black Mambas.
Okay.
They got one kid if they throw him, you got a shot.
They can beat anybody.
Right. You can beat anybody. But if you don't have him, then, and I think that's a little what's unique about us is if you come to play for me, I don't care if you've never pitched before, you're pitching.
Yeah.
Because when you get in these tournaments, and you might not pitch all year long, but you better be able to have enough.
You better know what you're doing.
When we put you on there.
We're the same way. We pitch everybody.
Yeah, and you have to. Even if you go and look at, let's take high school, all your state winners, almost everyone on there for baseball, they have 8, 9, 10 guys that can pitch. And if you don't have pitching, you can't win games.
No, it's amen to that. Sure.
I mean, pitching and defense.
Yeah.
Because all you need is one run.
It's a good point. It's a good point. And it's all about who's on the mound.
Right.
But, like the levels, will dictate also, there's some AAA, AA,
sure.
The opens. I'll tell you that the best ball that I think across the board that we played was that TBS tournament that was in Elizabethtown.
Okay.
Those teams came from all over, and first time I ever played in a TBS tournament.
Okay.
They asked us to come and play, and we held our own. I think we only got in 11-year-old baseball, right? It was I think a 3-3 ball game in the second or third inning. I think it was the third inning. We had 2 outs. We gave up 10 runs with 2 outs to get run ruled.
Wow.
Out of a team from Texas.
Yikes.
Outside of that game, we either won or lost all our games by 1 run.
Yeah, so you're in everything. And you guys, with the kind of talent you have, you should be in everything.
But I think that tournament...
And that's really what you want.
Yes, yeah. But I think that tournament opened up our eyes to our kids of like, this is what's out there.
Yeah, we got work.
It's just, it's not... E-Town. It's just not going to Grand. Like Grand Park's pretty good. I mean, and E-Town's good too. They get different, but Grand Park you normally get a different mix. But that's travel baseball.
That is travel baseball.
I mean, that's like, sure we could all play in one league.
Yeah,
and we could all do it. But why?
Yeah,
I mean, it's travel, and we'd love to play you, and we'd love to go. But I'm not playing you 6 and 7 and 8 times when. We could go to put the money together and let's go to Branson.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been to Branson. Let's go to Branson.
Well, you guys do that really well. You guys travel a lot more. And you've said that to me in the past. You're like, hey, it's travel ball. We travel. And our parents know that. So we're not going to sit around and we're not going to play in Clarksville every weekend.
Yeah, we're not.
Right.
We're going to go travel and play. We may play there once, but we're not going to do it every weekend.
Well, and it's one of those things, too, that everyone wants their money, right? But you have to be sanctioned. Like, you got to pay the perfect game sanction. You got to play the game sanction.
Yeah.
You got to pay the USSSA sanction. You got to have this sanction.
Everybody wants their sanction money. Yeah.
Right. Which is fine.
And
some of the parents are like, well, why do we, do? And I'm like, because that's where the travel. I mean, that's the different competition. That's where
and that's what's making you grow. I get that. All right. So you got tryouts coming up. How do you handle tryouts? Now, obviously, you've got a mix of kids that
have been together for a long
time. Your worst kid's going to leave your team and be the best player on most teams. So how do you look at tryouts?
They have to be a fit. Like, they truly, truly had it. Like,
well, let me ask you this, though. So if you've got a kid that comes that is a fit, great family, great player, you know that they can help you, but you got all 12 coming back, do you cut them because that one kid at the bottom might be a little bit less talented, or how do you handle that?
It really all depends. We sit down once we have tryouts and who comes, and we sit, Sean, Daniel, and I, we all go out to dinner, and we play all kinds of scenarios.
Okay.
Like, even if, say, these 3 kids, if we decide to go, the main thing to do is you got to be able to have these kids go play for someone. Right? That's the one thing that...
So you're saying if you get rid of a kid, you want to give them an opportunity to go elsewhere?
Yes.
You want to find a new team for them?
Okay. I like that. That makes sense. That makes sense.
I am not like... I am more about developing the kid. Now, keep in mind, the kid's got to want it too, though. Like, you can give them all the information, but if they're not going to work and they're not going to do stuff...
I get that. I'm just saying all things equal. if you get a kid that shows up to tryouts that had not been on your team, would you potentially replace a kid that's at the bottom of your roster that has been there, that's done the right things, the family's invested?
There's always that. Yes.
There's always that opportunity.
There's always that opportunity.
And they know that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. They had, and it happened a couple years ago for us that we added one. We had to get rid of one, and it's that's part of travel baseball too.
That's part of being a championship team, I think, too. Honestly, and look, I've had a couple parents tell me in the past,
but it's not easy.
You're too nice.
No, it's not easy.
No, it's
at all.
not easy because you become friends with these parents,
Yep.
and it's a situation where it might be a great kid. But if you're going to become a championship team and continue to play at a high level, you almost have to do that.
Right. And, the other thing is you got to keep in mind, too, they're 11, they're 12. I'm not all about win, and wins not. These kids got to go on and play because eventually we're all going to be done.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're all going to be done, and our kids
Yep.
are going to be grown and this and that. And you got to give them that foundation that they can leave you to go play for someone else and not fall flat on their face.
I agree.
But back to your point, though, yes, there's always that, and you have to, because if not, then the kids kind of get set in their ways of, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm going to be here.
I'm going to be here regardless.
And it's not that way. Like you're going to have the physical mistakes, right? The mental mistakes, you got to get that on board. You've got to be able to learn how to work. Like we always go and say, hey, we have to work today. Someone wants your job. Someone eventually is going to take it. If you don't work, someone's going to take it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not only.
So you guys are competing. I mean, which makes sense. You guys got a ton of talent, so there's a lot of competition going on for each spot, which makes you guys better.
But it's and you have to keep it that way. If not, then you kind of lose your competitive edge.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You kind of, but it's always, and I don't know if we'll change anything or not, to be quite honest, for the tryouts.
Well, it depends on who shows up.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, but it has to be a fit too.
No, I get that.
It's,
and we've talked about this in the past.
yeah.
How do you know a parent's a fit?
Yeah.
You got to vet them a little bit, but man, that's a tough.
Yeah.
It's way easier to figure out if the kid's going to fit because you put them in the dugout and how's he interacting with other kids. But you don't know how is the mom going to work out with the other moms. We don't. That's a tough. You don't know.
Be careful on Facebook, people.
That's right.
Because we're looking.
Hey, you almost have to, man. A little Facebook research goes a long way.
Yeah.
And these college, you hear it all the time. The college people that are recruiting kids, they look at their social media. That's like the first thing they look at.
When they bring in the family.
And they know if it's the right fit or not.
Well, kids have lost scholarships over
Yeah,
that.
I don't care how good you are.
Heck yeah, they've lost scholarships
I saw this
over
and
that.
this and this, and I ain't having it.
All right, so Tighe, every week we give a drill. Well, not every week, but we try to give a drill that some coaches that listen to the podcast can get some value out of. What is your and this is a two-part question because there's something else that you do that I really want you to kind of elaborate on. But what is your favorite drill?
I don't know if we actually have a name for it, but we kind of hold it over the kids' head because we had talked earlier, and if the kids want to do the drill, it's that much more. Like you don't have to they want to do it. It isn't like, oh, hey, we're going to do rundowns today, and like, oh,
right,
kind of like when we call it, it's a 3-team game.
Okay.
Normally we have 12 kids, and we'll divide them up with groups of 4. So if the 4's hitting, the other 4 is in the field, and so
the other 8's in the field.
I'm sorry, the other 8 are in the field.
Okay.
And if the 8, and you have to play a position that you normally play.
And a coach is typically pitching.
Coach is pitching, or you can use the tee.
Got it.
All right. And if it's, say, you have a position that 2 kids play, then you got to play something that's either similar, or you might have to go play a position that you normally don't play.
Got it.
But with that being said, you still have to have some kind of means of how to play that position.
Got it.
So first team's up at bat, you label them team 1, 2, and 3, and you play half innings. So those 4 kids get in there, they hit. If they hit 8 times and only get 2 runs or something like that, or 3 runs, then they keep account of their runs.
You're playing 3 outs.
3 outs. Then after the 3 outs, you tell them group 2's up. So that group 1 has to go get their stuff, they got to go to the field as the group in the field. Another group are still there. Maybe they switch a different position or they stay there. Then the second group comes up. They have 3 outs. So as it goes on, then you can throw different rules in. If say you think they're not moving as quick or changing innings, so you count down from 10 and say, if I get to 0, you all as a hitting team gets an out. Like someone better be in that box.
So
I
penalize
love
hit.
that. How many times, Rick, have we been in the dugout and the kid's like, I don't have a hat? Like, where is how did you lose your hat in between this inning and that inning?
Right.
I mean,
Or somebody else has my hat.
Right.
Or,
so knowing where your stuff's at, because you get to the point when you get to high school ball, college ball, pro ball, you got to go pick that guy up, right? You're taking your stuff out to him on second base, wherever it may be.
Right.
So knowing where your stuff's at, it's important.
It's, in every half inning you want to get out there and warm up, but the kids love it. Like then it gets very competitive of, well, we're only going to do 2 innings. Well, at the 2 innings, if usually the team that's losing or if it's tied or something, let's play one more.
Yeah.
One more. This, and you think, well, all right, does everyone agree? Yeah. Then usually the kids that are winning are like, well, heck yeah, I'll defend that or or something. But
what are you teaching at this point? So I get the point of the kids wanting to do this mini game and that being fun, but are you stopping and teaching scenarios at all, or are you just letting them play?
If it comes up that maybe a situation that we haven't seen, or we get in and say, hey, you got to think about this, or did you think about, well, you went here, potentially you could have gone here, or usually what we'll do is we'll let them play a couple innings, then we'll break it down. Like a lot of times too, if we use the T, I'll coach third, Sean will coach first, so they'll get the access, the coaching access of this is how you're doing. Like we're going to steal. It hits every phase. You get situation out of it. You get the action. Like you get real baseball.
I like that. That makes sense. And the kids enjoy it while they're doing it.
Oh heck yeah! And it's one of those things too. And you can divide the teams up differently. Like you can do numerical order, or you can say, hey, you got 5 seconds to get with a group of 4, or you might, if you're working on, let's say, middle infield, each group will have a middle infielder.
Gotcha.
Say, hey, you're going to play short every half inning or whatever, and if you're both on the same team, someone's got to go to second, someone's got to go short. You can divide it up many different ways, but the kids really they ask, are we going to play the game? Are we going to play the game?
Well, that's awesome.
And then they're like, well, if we get this done.
So you kind of hold it over their head a little bit.
So they just call it the game. So that's your drill.
It's kind of like we're going to play the game.
You just named your drill.
Well,
the game.
So something else that you had told me you guys do, and honestly, Tighe, we tried this, but didn't really figure out how to do it effectively. But you had told me how you guys replay situations. So maybe you guys have an error or something happens in a game that you guys go and replay games almost, right, in practice.
Different scenarios, yes.
Okay.
And the ones that we normally do is kind of like you can tell they're throwing it all over the ballpark.
Yep.
The one thing is if we tell the kids, don't panic, even though it's easier than we'd say, like, if you have the ball, you're in control. But with that being said, you got to know what to do with the ball.
Right. You got to know where to go. Sure.
So, we'll go in every situation, but usually it's a situation that we haven't seen.
Okay.
Or we'll be put in a situation of, let's do this again. This is how we should have done this, or this is another way we can do it. And I'll get in, and at third base, I'll take the lineup card. And when I'm at third or whatever, and it's something like a phase or we struggle with, or even a person, like one of the kids, I'll jot it down and put third inning, this situation, and I'll address it right after the game. But I'll take that card before practice, and I'll look at it and say, we need to go over that.
Yeah.
Like we have to do that because we're going to see that again.
Yeah.
And we try, even as practice, we run a pretty good practice, and we get our bullpens in, we try to hit, but our kids warm up the same way. Like they go to left field, they stretch, they do their long toss, they do short work. I'm a short work guy. You can do short work every single day, and it's almost like throwing a bullpen.
Well, explain to people what short work is.
Short work is a pitching drill, which you're maybe 12 feet apart, maybe 15 at the most, and you do different phases of the windup.
Yep.
Like you'll spread your feet all the way apart where it's balanced that you have to stay in that position to get over your front side. Like you have to load up just like staying back. And essentially what it is the way you finish.
Got it.
Like it's nose over toes,
yep.
chest over knee, Then from there, you might do a balance drill. You might have to come to your pause point in a set position and count to 3 to keep your balance. And it's a field drill.
Got it.
So your catcher, your partner is literally down in a catching position, 10, 15 feet apart, and you're getting your fingers on top, out in front, and you're throwing downhill. Then if you're wide, then you're stretch, you go your wind up, and you work your fastballs in, your fastballs away. You throw a 2-seam. If you got a breaking ball, you just flip it.
And you're doing this every practice?
Every practice we do it. Like every time that we warm up.
That's interesting.
Then from there, we'll break up, and we try to do a phase of the game. If it's rundown, if it's covering home, if it's pickoffs, if it's follow your throw, if it's a cutoff. Usually we always do infield, outfield. It could be as extensive of doing it for 20, 25 minutes or as little as 5, depending on what we're doing. Usually we try to do situations, just different situations, and try to get them from the running standpoint of it, of what to do and what not to do, and the fielding standpoint of what to do, what not to do. Then we always I try always to do some type of phase of the game.
Okay.
Because if you don't do the phases of the game.
And I get that. And we do that too. I mean, we try not to do it a ton, but we're trying to do to where they retain it. And we do something that it's different a little bit each week and just trying to teach that phase of the game. That makes sense.
Do you ever repeat it though?
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, we try not to repeat it too much, but But yeah,
they're 11 and 12. They seem to forget things, quite frequently.
And that's one thing. And I'm very big on bunt defense. Like we do bunt defense all the time.
You better know how to play the bunt defense on us, boy, because we're fast and we're gonna bunt all day long.
Well, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
Like if you got a bunting team, you got to learn how to defend the bunt. I mean, it's part of the game.
Don't give our secrets away.
Yeah, well, I tell you better know, because I don't care if you do know, because a couple of our kids are going to bunt it. They're still going to be safe.
Well, hey, there you go.
That's right. I mean, but you got to use your weapons, right? I tell you, we've outcoached a lot of teams by knowing how to bunt and knowing how to cover a bunt
or stealing home.
It's like I can't tell you how many times, and I'm totally like going to cost us games, Rick, by saying this, but I can't tell you how many times where I would show bunt and I have had a guy on second, and that third baseman runs up, and I'm like, you just gave me third base.
Yeah.
And every time, and I had this, it was hilarious. This one old man one time, we did it to this team twice, good team out of Alabama, and he's over there going, damn, you're just out coaching us like crazy, aren't you? And I'm like, well, you got to, and the third baseman's running up because they hadn't been taught, hey, that pitcher's got to cover that side. There's just little things like that.
Well, and that's the fun part too. Because like the tournament in E-Town, the TBS tournament, most all those guys had played at one point, and it just like what you're saying is, well, let's see how well they've been coached.
Right.
Like let's see how this is. Let's pull this or let's pull that and see. And and Sean's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we got to see how well they're coached.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of when he's like, man, and I'm like, well, you know what? He just gave us a run.
Or there you go.
Or something like that. And I said, maybe that's the only run that we need.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, and it's funny how, you get to a level, and it doesn't have to be. There's great coaches out there too that haven't had playing past, kind of, high school or whatever. But they got to be in it a little bit. I mean, at some point, even if it's little league or kind of.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something we're going to talk to Keith Madison about next week. But so I'm a member of the American Baseball Coaches Association, and I watch these videos constantly. And what I've learned from listening to some of the best baseball minds and baseball talk, it's been phenomenal. You know, if you're not a member of that organization and you haven't played baseball at a high level, I would recommend it because, man, there's so much good stuff on that thing. I mean, because it's the who's who of college coaches, MLB coaches talking about just breaking everything, every little topic you can want. They break it down. It's pretty cool.
And what's cool, and that could be a double-edged sword too, though. Because sometimes they break it down too much that you don't really understand, or you look at it as a way. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there's always both sides.
Sure.
And, you know, sometimes the guys that do hitting lessons and stuff, I'm like, couldn't you say that another way? And that's what's unique also too, is you get different perspectives from different people.
That's a great point.
And you don't know what's going to click.
You're right.
Like you can teach this kid everything this way, then he goes over to another coach and he says something, he's like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. And he just said the same thing,
like I said
just a little bit differently.
He said the exact same thing, but he might have
Different way.
one word or one thing or showed him something different, and it's like, and it doesn't matter how he gets it as long as he gets it, right?
You know, it's funny. So our catcher is a great hitter. But he goes to a couple different guys for batting lessons. There's one guy that puts a cinder block behind his back leg, and when he does that, kid hits great. And that's like the one thing. Not that everybody else hasn't told him, hey, let's keep
Quit
that.
moving your
That's
back
good.
leg.
Right. But that cinder block, that clicked. You know, and when he thinks about that, he crushes the ball. So that's interesting you say that, because you're right, because it's just little methods differ.
Yeah, or different lingo. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of one of those things that, you know, and you never know who's going to do it.
You're right. Well, Tighe, this has been, we could do this all day long, and this has already gone to the point where I'm probably going to break this into 2 parts anyways. And you and I have talked baseball forever, so I appreciate you being here, man. This was awesome.
No problem.
This is great.
As always, well, not as always, as the last few, I roll this out with a band that you may or may not have heard of, and I've gotten a lot of, coincidentally, Rick, I've gotten a lot of compliments on these songs. A lot of people are like, oh, I didn't know that song. All right. Well, so the song this week is by a band called Silkwood Showers. It's Frank Green and Scott McKenzie. Scott McKenzie was actually in a band I was in way back in the day. Awesome little tune. I hope you like it. We're going to roll out with that. As always, Guardian Baseball, if you use Kentuckiana Travel Ball for an additional 15% off. Next week, we're going to do this catcher gear by All-Star, so really, really cool. Have you used Guardian at all? Do you know anything about Guardian Baseball?
Just from your website.
Man, I'm telling you, it's awesome. So, like, if you go and do any of your shopping at Dick's or any of that type of stuff, they have a storefront. I really recommend, because it's better quality stuff, and it's baseball people. So you walk in there, they can kind of say, oh yeah, they know exactly what you're talking about, as opposed to, you know, some kid that's just getting paid to stand around Dick's. It's actually it's knowledgeable people. I highly recommend going over to Guardian Baseball.
Way better selection, and use the promo code.
Use the promo code.
Save how much?
15% off. Tighe, thank you for being here, man. This was fun.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Silkwood Showers. Here we go.
I like the name.
Yeah, it's a cool name, isn't it? It's a good song, man. It's got kind of a different feel, but it's an awesome tune. All right, we'll see you guys next week. We'll be back with Keith Madison, the winningest all-time UK coach. He's in every Hall of Fame you can imagine. We're going to ask Coach about all kinds of different things, so we'll see you next week.
I'm the one who said, take it home and find you. Thank you, and please find another head. The pain won't bind you. The angel, the devil, and me. Shouting from your bed.